As much as this feels like the start of this video, I am very embarrassed to say this, but it sort of isn't. I had to exclude like 1 hour of recording of this coaster because it went so damn terrible. I actually did go for the Aero coaster in the end, since it just fits in the park more. The park has more of a classic ride sort of feeling to it. Not really the classic ride feeling that you would have with, for example, the really old wooden coasters with side friction, but you know, we've got the older stuff in here. No B&M coasters or newer high-tech rides, and even though an Aero Megalooper is somewhat modern, I do still feel it feels more in place with the rest of the more classic things in this park. But yeah, I had so much trouble designing this coaster. Designing it really makes it sound like I'm doing some sort of tough thing. It's just a game, but I had so much trouble actually making this coaster, since I had to make it fit inside this sort of space that I had, and it's very confined. I didn't even think a wing coaster would fit in this space really. And I also wanted to make it look like it would be a stereotypical standard Aero Megalooper, but of course I didn't want to rip off the layout of existing ones, so it sort of had to clearly look like it, but yet not be it at the same time, which was quite hard to figure that out as well. And I sort of started off with these loops, but in the end, it was sort of hard to get the corkscrews in. Basically, half of this is just me trying to get the double corkscrew, because there was no way that I couldn't get a double corkscrew into this ride and actually make it work and go to the station without colliding with any of the existing coaster track. It did actually work there for a second, but it just felt way too close to the track that I had over there. So I don't know what I went with exactly on like my 1000th try to see and get those corkscrews in, but I had to rearrange every single part of the ride multiple times just to be able to sort of make the finale work in the end, which was sort of tough. But I suppose it's worth it. It's the sort of thing that I wanted to have in the park. I think this is actually where I almost finished it. At least it... Okay, nope. There we go. Still don't finish it. So yeah, this took a while. This was actually terrible IRL. I was scratching my head at these corkscrews were way too long. And usually I don't have that much issues, since especially with this sort of coaster, there's a certain formula that you follow to make it, which makes building coasters a lot easier and usually a lot quicker as well. But in this case, I sort of found that the formula was holding me back more than it was allowing me to actually make this a smooth ride, literally and figuratively, which was sort of tough. For the rest of the park though, I do have to say, this park is following like the stereotypical formula of like the guide for potential theme park owners, especially in terms of roller coasters. We just have the standard kiddie roller coaster, the family suspended coaster, the very much necessary and obligatory wooden coaster, and then of course the big coaster with the loop-de-loops, which should be this one in the end. I don't think I went with these corkscrews in the end either. Like trying to get it around that lift hill, but then the loops were just in the worst place ever. Oh, this is how I did it actually. Yeah, there we go. It is about finished eventually. After about, it was over 2 hours of me struggling to make this thing actually look the way it does, but then it was alright, I suppose. Though I have to say, the colors are another problem. I sort of wanted to go with the standard Aero Megalooper colors, which is just red tracks and white supports. But then again, I already have a red track coaster, and I would feel bad having two coasters with the same track colors in one park, especially that close together. And of course, it's way too standard of a color scheme for this coaster type. But the issue is, I want to have some sort of color scheme that looks dull enough to be an Aero coaster, if that even makes sense. You kind of want to have some more metallic colors and sort of almost washed out, since Aero coasters are so old and dilapidated. And I didn't want it to become too grey. I at least want it to be somewhat bright, since this is Parkitect and the bright style just fits it a little bit more, I suppose. Also, the screen just froze for a second there, which is because I don't know what I did there, but one thing to kind of keep in mind with these videos is that sometimes the game crashes, which is actually something that I had here and there. Surprisingly, I think this was the first episode where it crashed on me though, but it just randomly did. And I mean, it is still a pre-alpha build, but I sort of didn't expect it. And another thing is that every time I leave the game, it actually pauses it, which is something that I don't have in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, and I might have mentioned this before, but sometimes I just want to close the game for a couple of seconds to change the song that I'm listening to or something like that. And whereas in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 it still keeps on playing in the background and it doesn't awkwardly just freeze for a second, this game likes to just completely freeze whenever I leave its window, which is good in some sort of sense that it doesn't do weird things while you're doing other things, but in the time-lapse sometimes it is almost like the video is buffering or doesn't work for a second, which if you do click on the video because it's suddenly freezing because I left to change my song or something that I'm listening to, I'm sorry about that, but it just happens, sort of. I mean, I could not leave the game and make this time-lapse a little bit better, but really, in the end, I don't give a shit, and I just want to be comfortable playing this game, so yeah, whatever. This is a little bit of just finishing the main street, trying to make this look somewhat alpine, but it's just impossible. Actually, the better way to make your parks look alpine probably is to just make your buildings a lot larger and make them more alpine in shape, since the idea that I sort of went into when I tried making these buildings is to have these very Austrian, Tyrolean sort of buildings, where you have these awesome balconies in the front of it, but I'm just missing the very core components of them. So even though they do look alright in the end, and it's a cute little main street, I suppose, it just doesn't really carry the atmosphere that I was going for in a way, and I really feel like I shouldn't have done this entirely. It is almost more Western than it is Alpine, or at least it doesn't really know what sort of theme it is. It doesn't mean that I completely hate the look of this main street, but not knowing what sort of theme it's supposed to be is sort of how I feel about the way that it looks. It's sort of just there without any sort of central idea. At least that's how I feel about it. There's actually some funny things here and there though. This was a good park to practice with, especially for finding out different uses for different scenery objects. Just to name a few really. The sign, which is I think from Kenny's Signs and Banners set, can be used for pretty much anything in the world, really. It can be used to just decorate fences, but it's also sort of a little board underneath your windows. Since I couldn't have the window boxes underneath the windows, I figured, yeah, whatever, this sign will have to do as a funny little decoration there. You can use the posts as chimneys for buildings, which are kind of annoying to get the right placement of, since you don't really have the grid for them if you want them in the middle of your roof. But then again, they do look somewhat convincing as chimneys. I do kind of like them, as much of a pain as it is to place them. And it's just those little things that I kind of come about when playing the game. The same thing is over here. If you use those Western facade pieces, you can actually get some wooden framework onto your walls. As long as you keep the same color of the wall and the same color of the posts, you can just combine any sort of wall piece with little accents on it to create entirely new accent decorations, which is a lot of fun too. And actually open the game up to try and build a city, which is something that I haven't even shared yet. And it is actually pretty good for that. The art style, I do think it would even fit some sort of city management game, but overall, you already have a lot of freedom over what sorts of buildings you can make in this game. You're definitely missing glass pieces, but other than that, you can actually make really funny buildings with this. You may see that sort of video in the near future. I might actually start a very short series about a city, but really, I'm messing with too many things in this game and it's all very random and on a whim, and I shouldn't make videos of that. I'm not even too sure about the future of making videos of this game, what I should do with it, but I'll probably just start another park after this one, which should be a bit more organized and less like a random practice park to kind of get the hang of things, which is honestly what this park was for a great deal. Not to say that I'm not happy with how this park turned out, because it's almost there. Just need to finish the foliage and the stations of the invert and the arrow Megalooper and some simple path stuff. But I think it's time for a change, and also some more practice. In any case, that's the end of this video, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.